And welcome to another League of Legends champion guide. Today's champ is Poppy, the Iron Ambassador. Poppy is a melee nuke and an assassin. She's great at focusing down a single target and has a huge burst, which makes her a real threat for all her enemies. Poppy can be either played on ability power or an attack damage. In this guide I will go into detail about both ways of playing her. First of all, let's go into detail about her spells. Her Q spell is called Devastating Blow. Poppy hits her focus, dealing her attack damage plus a decent amount of magical damage and 8% of her target's maximum health as bonus damage. This spell is Poppy's main source of damage and will almost instantly burst down squishy enemies. Her next spell is Paragon of Demacia. Upon hitting an enemy unit, its passive grants Poppy bonus armor and attack damage for 5 seconds. This effect can stack up to 10 times. When activated, her movement speed is increased and Poppy gains all 10 stacks of its passive for 5 seconds. This is great for escaping or catching up with your enemies. Her E-spell is Heroic Charge. Poppy charges at an enemy, dealing magical damage and carrying them further. If they collide with terrain or enemy creeps, her target will be stunned and get bonus damage. If used at the right moment, this is great for disabling an enemy and giving you and your team enough time to kill him. Poppy's ultimate is Diplomatic Immunity. Poppy focuses one enemy, increasing the damage she deals to him. While Diplomatic Immunity is up, Poppy can only take damage from her focus and is immune to any other damage. This is a great spell for focusing single enemies and taking them down easily with the increased damage. Last but not least, her passive Valiant Fighter. Any damage dealt to Poppy that exceeds 10% of her current health is reduced by 50%. This makes her very tanky so that you do not need to focus on getting survivability items. Okay, now let's go to the runes. Here you have to decide whether you want to play her on attack damage or on ability power. On Summoner's Rift, I prefer playing Poppy on attack damage, since you have a higher damage output that way and are a higher threat in the late game. On Twisted Treeline, I strongly recommend playing her on AP to burst down one single target, even a tank with 3000 HP and a lot of armor without any problems. When playing AD Poppy, I use armor penetration marks, health regeneration per level seals, and mana regeneration per level glyphs. My quintessences give me additional movement speed. When playing AP Poppy, the only difference in my runes is that I exchange the armor penetration marks with magic penetration. Alternatively, for both variants, you can exchange the seals with health per level, mana regeneration per level, attack speed, dodge, armor, or even ability power per level runes, whatever you like best. You can also exchange the glyphs with whatever works out best for you. Still, I strongly recommend using movement speed runes. These runes give you the additional movement speed you need with Poppy to chase down enemies or get in the right position to pop them against walls and stun them. Okay, now to the Masteries. Again, if you feel like it, you can vary here. For AD Poppy, I take 2109 Masteries most often. When playing AP Poppy, I personally prefer taking 9021 Masteries. So that we know the basics, let's go to some gameplay. First of all, let me answer the following question. When shall I play AD Poppy and when shall I play her on AP? As I've already said, on Summoner's Rift I strongly recommend playing Poppy on AD. However, if your team has no magical damage and already 2 or more AD carries, you should really play her on AP. I will explain the item builds later. First of all, the early game. With Poppy, you can either do a solo lane, but only against one enemy, or a dual lane. I personally like playing her on dual lane best, because with an ally on your lane you have an increased chance of getting kills early. The best champions to lane with Poppy are tank and support champs like Taric, who have a lot of CC. This should make it easy for you to get some kills in the early game. Your starting items can either be a regrowth pendant and a heal pot, Doran's shield, or boots and 3 to 4 heal pots. I personally recommend buying regrowth pendant, which you will build to Philosopher's Stone. This item is great for Poppy because it helps you a lot in the early laning phase. On level 1, you should try to either skill your Q or your E spell, then go for Q again, and on level 4 you should skill your W spell. From then on, prioritize Q and then E or W, depending on whether you need more damage output or more survivability and speed. For your summoner spells, I suggest either taking Flash and Ignite or Ghost and Ignite. Flash and Ghost are both good to catch up with fleeing enemies and to get in position to pop them against walls. Ignite is essential on Poppy. Its damage is increased by 60% if you use your ultimate on the target, which makes it do 650 true damage at level 18. Farming with Poppy is difficult in the early game. You should always try to get as many last hits as possible without being harassed too much by your lane opponents. If you have enough mana regen, you can also use your spells for farming. When laning against ranged carries, they will often attack you and do some damage when you try to last hit creeps. Therefore, I personally like having a lot of HP regen to ignore that and still be able to farm a lot in the early game. If you get in position to pop an enemy against terrain and attack them with your Q spell, you should always go for that. Once an enemy is on half HP in the laning phase and comes too close to you, you should be able to kill him easily. Now let's go into detail about your item build. First, the item build for AD Poppy. In the early game, you might want to get Philosopher's Stone first and then Boots of Speed and Sheen as fast as possible. Sheen increases your Q spell damage output by a lot and makes it burst much more. Your boots should be either Mercuries or Berserkers. If you do not use movement speed runes, take Boots of Swiftness. Your core item is Trinity Force. It gives you everything Poppy needs and makes her Q do up to 1000 damage on hit. Your further items are situational and depend on how the game is working out for you. They can be either Infinity Edge to crit up to 1400 damage with your ultimate, Last Whisper for additional armor penetration, or Yomu's Ghostblade. If you feel like you need more survivability or die often, take Guardian Angel or any other armor and magic resistance item, depending on who the enemy's main carry is and who you are going to focus in the late game. The AP Poppy build is the same till you have Sheen. Your boots can be Mercury's, Boots of Swiftness or Sorcerer's Boots. Your core items will be Deathfire Grasp, Lichbane and Rabadon's Death Cap. Deathfire Grasp's active stacks with your ultimate and does up to 60% more damage with it. Lichbane increases your Q's damage output by a lot. The further items are situational again and can be Abyssal Scepter, Sonia's Hourglass, Void Staff, Banshee's Veil or any other survivability item. If you play AP Poppy, you are more of a single target noob. You will put your ultimate on an enemy, use Deathfire Grasp on him, ignite him, and do the rest with Devastating Blow and Heroic Charge. This should take out every enemy without any problem. Even a tank with 3000 health and 160 magic resistance. However, after that, you do not have that much damage output anymore and depend on your Q spell. Once you reach level 6, you should try to get some kills with your ultimate, either by ganking on other lanes or by tower diving. When tower diving, you always have to keep in mind that your ultimate prevents you from getting tower damage for 6 seconds or till your target dies. So you should not try to kill a target under his tower when you are on low HP yourself, since the tower can kill you once the enemy is dead. This is pretty much all you need to know about the early game. So let's go to the mid and the late game and some tips and tricks. In the mid game, you should try to gank and kill your squishy enemies as often as possible. In team fights, you should try to focus the squishy champions to get some feed and get your items as fast as possible. Sometimes you can also initiate a fight with your ultimate. If possible, try to get the red buff. Its damage is increased by your ultimate and the slow helps you a lot when enemies try to escape, for example with summoner spells. In the late game, Poppy's job is to take out the enemy's main carry. You should wait till he has used some of his spells so that he cannot deal too much damage to you when you use your ultimate on him. Once the enemy's main carry is dead, your team should be able to win the teamfight without any problems. Okay, last but not least, some tips and tricks. Poppy is one of the fastest champions in the game. She can easily run away and get kills by outmoving her enemies. Moreover, you always have to keep in mind that you can save your life when you are on low HP and for example Karthus or Caitlyn are doing their ultimates on you by using your ultimate on another close enemy and running away. The last important thing you should always remember is that you can use your E-spell on minions to escape or get closer when chasing an enemy. So this is the end of my guide, I hope you like it. If you do, please do not forget to rate, comment and subscribe. Next week's guide will be either Nidalee or Udyr. Please leave me a comment below telling me which guide you want to see. Thanks for watching.